Samo bih se nadovezao još. Osjetili se danas razlika između novinarstva, kako u novinarstvu, tako i demokracije između Njemačke i zapadne, zapadne istočne Njemačke. Znači...
There are some differences, but I guess the differences are surprisingly small if you consider that it is not that long ago, that it's kind of one generation or so since the fall of the wall and reunification. So sociologically and economically, politically, you will find all kinds of differences between East and West, but you should not misinterpret them, because you will also find all kinds of demographic, cultural, political differences between North and South. So if you see statistics telling you that the Western Germany is still economically a lot richer than the East, that's true. But you will also find the South is richer than the North, and there has never been a war between North and South. So not all of these differences that statistics show should be overvalued. I think altogether we were quite successful in Germany to establish democratic institutions and strengthen democratic institutions also in the eastern part. But for example, in one area where we do see a difference, that's the area of xenophobia. If you look at racist attacks, I have to frankly say that we see more of that in the east of Germany than in the west, and that is something that you cannot only explain with statistics. That is certainly something that shows that democratic values are still not rooted quite as deeply in parts of the east than in most of the west.
Thank you. Adis, Marko, Hamad. Oh, pardon, Adis,
Dobar dan, hvala što ste došli. Malo prije dok je kolegica nam govorila, moje ime je Hadis Šošić i ja sam student odsjeka za komunikologiju na Fakultetu humanističkih nauka Univerziteta Džemaat u Stanovi. Malo prije dok je moja kolegica govorila vezano za prijateljstvo između Njemačke i Bosne i Hercegovine, ja ono što meni prvo nam hvala da vas pitam, jeste to gdje je bila Njemačka kao prijatelj nama za vrijeme agresije na Bosnu i Hercegovinu kada ovaj narod bilo i gdje je bilo, kakve pomoći bila za ovaj narod koji je preživio torturu i vjerujte danas ne vjerujemo više nikomu kada nam dođe i kaže da će biti bolje, jer nakon svega što smo se naslušali i nagledali, ja mislim da nemamo ni sekunde vjerovatnoće da ćemo povjerovati na nešto kada neko kaže bit će bolje, mi mislimo da neće. Sad me zanima šta vi mislite na tu temu. Hvala vam na mišljenju.
In the 90s, in Germany, especially at the beginning of the 90s, you certainly can see a certain phenomenon that critically you could describe as a certain inward-looking, maybe even provincialism. But keep in mind, Germany had just been reunified, which was a huge challenge. We've talked about it right now, on all kinds of levels, politically, society-wise, economically, and so on. So Germany was not paying as much attention to international affairs at that time as it should have done. We're talking about a time just 3 or 4 years after the fall of the wall, 3 years after their reunification. And still, I would say Germany was quite active at that time also, starting with about 15% of the population of Bosnia and Herzegovina being welcomed in Germany alone as refugees. So no other country took in more refugees at that time as an absolute number, a relative number compared to the size of the population. Some other countries, Austria, Switzerland, took in still more refugees, but still from all the major countries, Germany also, as a proportion to the population, took in more refugees than other countries. Some of those refugees returned to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Some of them had to return because at that time Germany had a less liberal legislation concerning immigration than it has now. But still, some of them did stay in Germany and are very well integrated now, and you find fantastic, amazing success stories among that diaspora in Germany. In Germany, since the end of the Second World War, 1945, we had a constitution that did not allow Germany to militarily be active outside NATO, outside the territory of NATO. And with the horrors of the war in former Yugoslavia during the 90s, that legislation was changed. And as a result, there was some military presence also from Germany. That was the first time after the Second World War that Germany was directly, militarily intervening outside NATO. And it was the end point of a very long and difficult discussion, because of course, if you consider the German history, 2 world wars that were started by German military, by Germany, there were good reasons why the constitution in Germany was kind of modeled on a very pacifistic viewpoint, not allowing for German troops to be outside NATO. And still, those changes were made in the end, under the impression of the horrors here. And I think it was good that they were made. And I do, despite all that what I have said, despite what I've said about refugees that were welcomed in Germany, and despite what I've said about military involvement, and despite of what I could have said about economic reconstruction afterwards, financed by Germany, despite that, I still do understand that people who personally or through their family witnessed some of the atrocities that took place here say it was not enough, it was not quick enough, and the West should have and had an obligation to act quicker. Democracies are not always the fastest to react. I think that is part of the democratic society, and we just have to accept that that sometimes leads to situations that cause incredible suffering.
Good evening, Mr. Wagner. I'm Rusna Ljubic and I study journalism at University in Mostar, and I have a question for you. Which is the more important goal for Bosnia and Herzegovina, being a member of European Union or find a solution for our own problems in our country, like economic development, corruption, and lot of young people who are employed. I see there a lot of intelligent people who can be representatives in parliament, but unfortunately they're not there. They are Sulejman Dihić, Dragan Jovic, or someone else. So I want to know which is the more important goal for Bosnia, in your opinion. Thank you.
Please forgive me for not going into details when it comes to specific politicians or parties here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As a diplomat, that is not my paper to comment exactly, and that is your paper as citizens of this country to decide which politicians, which parties are part of the problem, and which politicians, which parties are part of the solution. And certainly different answers can be given to that. But we do believe that we can play a role facilitating what is necessary. I'm happy, by the way, that there are so many young participants here from Mostar, which is a city that has especially close links to Germany because there are so many people from the Mostar region in Germany. And it also has the world record as being the smallest city worldwide with 2 universities, both offering German language studies. Yay. So that is a world record, but of course it also shows some of the problems in Mostar, because you have a lot of things twice in the city of Mostar, twice on both sides of the river. In Mostar you can see some of the problems, like in a focus, like in a microscope, problems of the whole country, but you can also see maybe some of the solutions for the whole country. Solutions like, for example, we recently supported a street art festival in Mostar, and we also recently supported a model United Nations in Mostar. These 2 activities were organized by young people in the city of Mostar from both sides of the river, the Youth Council of Mostar, students from both universities in Mostar, young people who not always got that much support from official politics, from the city, from the canton, but still they made these events happening.
and they were fantastic, amazing events, and we were very proud to be part of those events and support those events. And I would love to see more of that happening, and I'm sure that whenever I discuss with young people here, there are so many creative minds in this country who have great ideas what to do, that there is also reason for optimism that a new generation of politicians will also reach out, maybe pay less attention to ethnic dividing lines. Sometimes when discussing with people here in the country, I have the feeling the biggest dividing line here is between generations. And maybe, therefore, there can be some natural solution. There was also a question earlier, I forgot to answer that part about if the embassy is active in trying to give employment here locally. And I did write down the word, so I found it again. The embassy directly does not, but Germany does, the German government does. We have two German institutions that are very active in that area. One is the GIZ, that is like the German Development Cooperation Agency. Like from the US, you might have heard of USAID. In case of Germany, it's the GIZ. And there is also KfW, which is a development bank. GIZ offers technical support, KfW offers financial support to all kinds of projects, but the focus of their activities here in the country is supporting small enterprises, supporting effective administration on a city and cantonal level to provide for the administrative framework necessary for investment and renewable alternative energy and eco-technology. Those are the three areas that these are active in, and they are doing pretty big projects that also generate quite a lot of employment. So KfW, the development bank from Germany, recently started a project of wind energy with a volume of 72 million euros. So that is kind of a pretty big investment here in the country over several years. But yeah, those projects are of course there to generate and help generate future employment opportunities.
First of all, good afternoon. My name is Marko Lazarević. I'm studying journalism, like we all studying journalism, in Pale, that's the small city near Sarajevo.
Yes, very nice to go skiing there.
Yes, yes. So, come again.
Yes, skiing season is about to start.
Yes, very soon. I'm studying journalism in the University of Philosophy. And my question is about brain drain. You said that Bosnian youth can go to Germany to work. But we all know that our people, when I say our, I think Bosnians, Croatians, Serbs and other ex-Yugoslavian people, that we are working in Germany mostly like construction workers. You know, that expression, Baustelle, we all know. And is it possible for me, example, if I know German, English or some language, is it possible to work in Germany as a journalist? Do you recognize our diploma? Or do I need to finish there, your faculty in Germany, and work as a journalist or any other job? Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to go a bit into detail about how to emigrate towards to Germany, but please don't hold me accountable then for further brain drain. I would say there are a lot of employment opportunities on short-term basis in areas like construction. And people who are active in those sectors are typically people who work in Germany for a few weeks or months and come back to Bosnia and Herzegovina, maybe go back again next year to Germany. That's why you hear a lot of these people. But it's not the majority of people from former Yugoslavia in Germany. The majority of people from former Yugoslavia in Germany are not working in construction, but are all over the economy, and most of them incredibly successful. So the reason why you hear so much about construction workers is really just because that part of immigrants are the ones who tend to come back and only go on a weekly or monthly basis. There are kind of three different ways to the German labor market. The easiest for most people is, when it comes to academics, to really get a university degree in Germany. That can be a master's degree. That's typically the typical way. Do a bachelor here, and then go for a master's degree in Germany. And once you get that master's degree, then the doors are open. As I mentioned, 18 months you have time to find a job. Now, as journalists, I guess it will be difficult without speaking the language. So that would be helpful, especially when you want to write for a German newspaper in Germany. Then there are two other ways. There is one way concerning people who are specialized in an area where there's a special shortage on the German labor market. That is especially for mathematics, engineering, natural science, informatics, computer studies, but also in the non-academic area, in healthcare, nurses especially. In those areas, there is easier access to the German labor market. And if in those areas you get employment, you find some employer in Germany who is willing to employ you, then you normally get the work visa. Again, to find an employer in Germany, in most areas, it helps to speak some German. Then there is a third way, which is open for anybody. Independent of what you have studied, of your degree, and independent of where you have studied, if you have any German degree or anything like that. And that is if you find an employer who is willing to give you a lot of money. So then what is open for you is what we call the blue card. More information on that is easily to be found in the internet. Blue card is an initiative which means free access to the labor market in Germany for anybody who gets an annual salary of, I think it is now 56,000 euros. For journalists, that's typically not the salary they receive as beginners.
Dobro večer, moje ime je Ambasada, ja dolazim iz Sarajeva, fakultet političkih nauka, odsjek komunikologija. Mene zanima vaše mišljenje, da mi kažete šta bi Bosna i Hercegovina trebala da uradi na polju medija da se približi, to jest da uradi korak naprijed ka Evropskoj uniji i koliko vaše predstavništvo može zapravo pomoći u tome?
There's a lot of potential for improvement in the media sector, but I would not say that the media sector is the main obstacle for Bosnia and Herzegovina to move forward towards EU membership. As I pointed out, Bosnia and Herzegovina is still ahead of some EU member countries when it comes to media freedom. So the moment that serious negotiations on EU membership will start, I don't think that there will be huge discussions about changes in the media area. The independence of public broadcasting, that will be an issue that will be discussed. And that certainly would help to get through with negotiations if the independence would be guaranteed again. And that is something that the German embassy and other EU countries are lobbying for, to make sure that politicians are aware that maybe by threatening the independence of public broadcasters and also the regulatory agency there, they might be creating a further obstacle towards the EU membership. But clearly this is not the main obstacle. But even small obstacles, right now, as we have seen stagnation in the process of moving towards the EU, it would be nice to not get small new obstacles, but get rid of some obstacles. What is the German embassy doing? Well, we have this ongoing, very good cooperation with the press council, and that is the main area in which we are active when it comes to the media, by supporting the press council, and we believe that they do a fantastic work, and the media landscape here would not be as diverse as it is without the press council. Otherwise, we also facilitate the Deutsche Welle, TV, radio, and internet agency from Germany, in their cooperation offers here, especially with BH TV, but also with some local TV stations Deutsche Welle Academy also offers some training for journalists from the region. So there are several programs like that. Also, Robert Bosch is a foundation from Germany, is active in that area. Some other foundations from Germany, like Adenauer, Ebert, Böll, sometimes have programs that also cover media journalism.
Pošto ste spomenuli utjecaj politike i političkih partija na medije u Bosni i Hercegovini, možete li mi reći šta je Njemačka uradila, znači šta je uradila po pitanju razdvajanja politike od medija, dakle da mediji budu neovisni po tom pitanju, jer je opšte poznata činjenica da svaki medij u Bosni i Hercegovini, bilo to televizija, bilo to neki printani mediji ili online mediji, imaju političku partiju koja stoji iza njih. Kako to dvoje razdvojiti?
I mean, when it comes to public broadcasting, again, also Germany is not an ideal approach. A simple example, if you look at regional television and radio from, say, Bavaria and Hamburg, you will find differences. You will find that public television and radio from Bavaria tends to be more conservative, leaning towards conservative positions than the one from Hamburg, and that reflects the political landscape in these two states. 2 of the 16 states in Germany that I just randomly cited now. So there is also some differences, and we believe that to a certain degree, public broadcasting can also reflect widespread political beliefs as long as there is diversity, as long as you have the choice as a consumer and get the different opinions. To guarantee as little as possible direct political influence on the public broadcasting, the vital thing, the thing that really counts, is the financing. The moment you get funding directly from taxes through government, of course you'll have political influence. And I mean, during the economic crisis now, some private media outlets as well in this country received help from government. And of course, if we are worried about the economic situation of journalists and of media, first of all, we are happy when we hear that. But then, when we think twice about it, we are worried about it, because we know that any kind of financial help to the media, which is not coming from an independent body, but from government, of course, will open the door to influence. So, although it sounds like a positive thing, if government gives money to media outfits, it really is a threat to the independence, and it should always be seen as such. But I understand that that's sometimes hard to do when you are in a financial crisis. Independent funding through contributions, we believe that is really for public broadcasting the only way to go. Then you have some council. I think in these councils, that in the end, the boards that do the decision making in the channels, it is essential to have as many groups from society represented as possible who are not parties, because by having a higher percentage of non-party members, automatically you have less party participants. So in the case of the boards of public broadcasters in Germany, you do have all kinds of associations. You have business, you have trade unions, you have religious groups. And all that means there are less people who get that seat in a board because of their party membership.
Ovako, možete li mi povući neku liniju između vašeg zanimanja kao diplomata i novinarstva na ovaj način? Vaša, recimo, je tako šefica i Angela Merkel. Ona odlučuje svim odlukama koje vi morate ovdje provesti više manje. Vi vjerovatno puno bolje znate situaciju u Bosni i Hercegovini od nje. Kako se vi ponašate kada morate nešto raditi, što mislite da nije dobro, a moglo bi se raditi na bolji način, recimo, ali ipak morate provesti tu odluku vaše kancelarke. To mislim na korelaciju urednik i novinar, kako se to odnosi.
Bravo.
When I joined the foreign ministry and diplomatic service, it was a worry that I had. How often would I have to defend positions that I thought were silly and were leading in the wrong direction? And luckily, it does happen less often than I had feared it would have. so far there has never been a situation in which I had to defend a position and pretend it was my own position when it really was not. So at least that worry, I must say, so far did not prove to be valid. However, of course, in a democracy, important decisions are to be taken not by civil servants, and diplomats are civil servants. They are to be taken by politicians. That's what they are voted for. And in the end, that means we have to implement the decision, and it is a thoughtful respect for democracy that we implement any decision that a democratically elected politician decides upon, even if we don't believe in it. As long as I don't have to pretend that I believe in it, and that is fine with me, and that is part of how I see my job. It is my job, I get paid for it by German taxpayers, so they have a right that I implement the policy they vote for in elections. And I don't see any ethical problems there if I don't have to defend that position and pretend it's mine. And I must also say, when it comes to the government of Angela Merkel, maybe part of her success is that she is quite open for experts to consult and to tell her what they believe she should do. She is pretty open for hearing different positions, and only in the very end then will take a position, a decision. Some people in Germany in the media rather criticize her for hesitating too long until she takes decisions. She certainly has strong own political opinions when it comes to some key issues of German politics, but when it comes to foreign policy, details of foreign policy, I guess the policy in Berlin is often shaped by the reports that come from embassies, like the German embassy in Sarajevo. And I would say altogether it is a pretty uncomplicated process, also due to the fact that the big controversies in German policy most often do not touch on foreign policy. When it comes to foreign policy, in the end of the day, differences between parties in Germany are not that huge. You can see that with the political foundations that I had mentioned earlier, that are directly linked to different parties in Germany: Christian Democrat, Conservative, Social Democrat, Green Party, the Liberal Party. Those four German parties have foundations with representations in Sarajevo, and they on a daily basis work together and often cooperate in their projects, because in the end we defend similar values like a strong civil society, a functioning democracy, human rights, an integration into the European Union, market economy, but with welfare, and also an ecological policy. So I think that makes it easier for foreign policy to also not change every time a new government gets elected. And I personally am a member of the Green Party, which is in opposition now, and could be seen as quite far away from Angela Merkel's Christian Democrat Party, more center-right party, and still I don't have difficulty sleeping at night when I think of Angela Merkel's policy towards the Balkans.
Moje ime je Slobodan Kovač, student novinarstva na Univerzitetu u Sarajevu. Zanima me konkretno mediji u Njemačkoj. Kakvu sliku su stvorili o Bosni i Hercegovini? Dakle, kakvu sada sliku običan narod u Njemačkoj ima o Bosni i Hercegovini? Iz mog ličnog iskustva mislim da je slika jako loša, da nas smatraju ovdje kao još neke divljake koji uopšte ne znaju ni šta je internet, a kamoli da koriste internet i slične stvari. I koliko vi možete da utičete kao diplomat, ambasada, da se ta slika promijeni?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I'm sorry about such experiences that you have maybe made. I'm sorry about these experiences that you apparently made. I would hope that they are not representative. I would say that on average, people in Germany have a positive view of people from Bosnia and Herzegovina
but possibly partly because of soccer, but mostly I think because of the fantastic experiences with people from Bosnia and Herzegovina in Germany. The diaspora is a fantastic ambassador for Bosnia and Herzegovina abroad. And I would guess, I haven't seen any study on that, but I would make the guess, the image of Bosnia and Herzegovina is the better, the more people from Bosnia and Herzegovina live in a certain city in Germany. There are some regions where you have clusters of people from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Again, my home region, Stuttgart, that's why I bring up that city name again and again. And in Stuttgart, I tell you, everybody knows somebody from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and chances are pretty high that they have fantastic experiences with their colleague, neighbor, friend from this region. So I think the image of people from Bosnia and Herzegovina is, in general, nothing to worry about. When it comes to the country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, it might be a bit of a different story. There, when I tell some people in Germany I'm going to Bosnia and Herzegovina, I sometimes might get questions like, the war is over, right? Or, well, is it still going on? How is the security situation? You're a journalist, so I don't have to tell you about bad news is good news. So, of course, you read a lot more about Bosnia and Herzegovina when the war was still going on than since the war ended. And that's just how media often works. You had a lot more German journalists on the ground here during the war and right after the war than you have now. Sadly, some German media outlets report on Bosnia and Herzegovina without a correspondent here, but through a correspondent who might be sitting in Vienna or maybe in Belgrade. But if it's in Vienna, then it could just as well be in Frankfurt or Hamburg directly. Then it is kind of bizarre to have a correspondent at all. But keep it in perspective. As a diplomat, I want to say only positive things, but it is a country of less than 4 million people, and how much media attention, how much articles do you read here in the local media about, say, Latvia? It's a smaller population, but not that much smaller. How much do people in Bosnia and Herzegovina know about Latvia? Or how much do people here know about Armenia? Or how much do they know about New Zealand? Countries of similar size. And therefore, I would say don't expect too much from the public and don't expect too much from media coverage in Germany. However, you have fantastic ambassadors out there, and that's not the ones who are being paid by the Foreign Ministry of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but that's the 200-something thousand citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina who live in Germany. And they are doing a great job for you, and they don't get even a salary from you. Quick remark then for the end. So I'm very happy that I was invited. It was very interesting for me to answer your questions, to discuss with you your opinions. It is very hot, and I'm sure it's the end of the day for you after a long day. But you will have a chance to ask whatever question you didn't ask now so far, because I'm here to stay, not for good, but until tomorrow. So feel free to ask whatever you still feel like asking during dinner or during breakfast. I'm also happy to hear together with you tomorrow in the first morning session about the Parliament and reporting on the Parliament. Let me also point out that together with me arrived this afternoon session Camilla Jurgensen, who is a journalist from Denmark. So you can brush up your Danish or English if you want and ask her some questions about journalism up in Scandinavia, where also there's a huge diaspora from people from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And otherwise, let me wish you another great experience here until the end of the workshop, and then good luck and courage and a lot of inspiration in your future. We have discussed many of the difficulties of this country. You guys as journalists have a huge responsibility and also a huge possibility to shape this country and help to make it a better place. Thank you very much.